Hello everybody, Anna Sabramowitz here. Hope you're having a fabulous day. It is Wednesday, hump day. For some of you, this is going to be a very interesting topic, and for some of you, this will be a painful topic, and for some of you, it'll be like, that's cool, I got it. All right, so today what I'm going to talk about is challenging subject matter expert situations. And anytime you are working as a designer and collaborating on a team with more than you, you will probably, most likely, work with an expert, right? You will be working with somebody who is giving you confirmation on whether the information is accurate or not, whether the situations are credible, whether the outcomes are meaningful, things like that, right? And I've gotten emails from people who are struggling with this, and I also get a lot of messages from people who are trying to incorporate interactive stories and scenarios into their work, and they find a ton of resistance from either their clients or from their subject matter experts when they introduce these ideas. So I wanted to give you some ideas about how to handle this and how to think about it, okay? Some of you might not like some of the things I have to say, but I'm here to offer you some different perspectives based on the struggles that I've had and based on the wins that I've had and based on the wins and the struggles from my students. So it's kind of a combination of a whole bunch of stirring the pot kind of experience, right? And if any of these things resonate with you, I would love to hear from you. I would love to actually jump on a strategy session with you, because if you're struggling with any of these things, I can help. And also, if you're already at a certain level professionally and you're looking to craft some meaningful learning experiences that integrate storytelling and scenarios, definitely jump on a call. So I'll put a link underneath the video. But before we get to that, let me tell you about some of my tips for dealing with people who are difficult. Here's the first thing I want you to gain is when you're getting feedback from people or resistance, you have to think about, number one, their perspective. So the first thing is you have to understand where they're coming from. One of the things you have to realize when you're dealing with people who are now working in e-learning projects with you is, one, they probably have no clue what the heck you do, right? And your job is not to explain it to them. Your job is to come in as a professional and offer them a solution. So a lot of us fall into this trap of explaining. No, you don't actually have to. It's like saying, do you have to go, when you go to the doctor, does he have to tell you all the learning that he's been through to become a doctor? No, he's a doctor and he has a solution, right? So you have to position yourself as a trusted advisor without having to explain why you're using. I mean, you will have to, in some cases, say, this is the best solution. Based on my experience in past projects, I can tell you this works, right? But you don't have to go into the research and the other stuff. Like, these people are hiring you to be the trusted advisor, and they don't have the time most times to learn about what you do and why you do it, right? You're trying to be there to save them time, not to educate them in instructional design, scenarios, script writing, and all that other jazz. That's not, they're not hiring you to teach them, they're hiring you to augment and perform, right? So let's step out of that perspective that we have to teach everybody about what we do. Because if the doctor had to teach you about everything that he does, then you'd be a doctor already, wouldn't you? Right? But they don't. They come in, consult, figure out what's going on, and help propose a solution and move that solution forward with your expertise. So see it from that perspective as well, that the other thing is that they're trying to accomplish something. Sometimes that thing that they're trying to accomplish is different than what you're trying to accomplish. You're trying to meet a deadline that, let's say, and produce something that's really meaningful for people, and maybe is a catalyst for people to realize there's other things in the learning ecosystem that they should, look at to have a better experience on their learning journey, right? So maybe you're designing an interactive story because you want people to get a bunch of ahas, get emotionally connected to really checking out all the resources in the LMS that are going to help them become a better salesperson or a better consultant or a better customer service rep, whatever that is, right? So your client, your SME, might not have at all the same goal. Their goal might be to get you as much info as possible, make sure it's as accurate as possible, and that's their only objective. Your timelines, your goals for creating meaningful experience, that's maybe not on their radar. And then this is what you also have to consider. And I've seen all these like archetypes of the SME, right? Categories of people. And to be honest with you, I used to believe that stuff. And then I thought, what the hell am I doing? Why would I put somebody in a box? Like, they're another human being with family, with worries, with pressures, with all kinds of stuff going on. So I can't be like, oh, this person is this kind of archetype. No, it doesn't. No, today is a different day than yesterday. Sometimes people just have a lot on their plate, right? They're just human like you and me. They're not a different species. So when we talk about subject matter experts, it really could be, your subject matter expert could be your spouse sometimes, because if you're developing an interactive story for your own portfolio, they're your subject matter expert. That doesn't make them an archetype of anything. They're just a human being with human being kind of stuff going on, right? So what you have to think about is that we, as people who are involved in learning, who love it, who you see all these examples out there and all this stuff that's possible, a lot of times what happens is we think that our universe is what everything revolves around as far as projects, right? But for most, to be honest with you, for most practitioners and subject matter experts that I've worked with, the reason they were brought on the project is because they're amazing at what they do, which means that what I do, it kind of like impinges on what they do a little bit, right? Because they're trying to still be awesome at what they're doing without like letting all the balls drop, right? So you have to be cognizant of that and say, hey, this for me, this is 100% of my time. For them, it's like, 5% of their time, because they got so much other stuff to do. So you think of it from that perspective, which also helps you focus on when you're asking for feedback. How can you be strategic about that? So we just had a conversation with one of our students during a strategy session, and we have coaching calls on Mondays and Fridays, right? And so it was difficult for her because her client is so busy, right? And she's like, I really need their feedback to move forward because, I've done all I can at this point. You've brought it to where you could, right? Without them. And so we were like, what could we do to make it like easier? What do they really care about? And they might just care about like really making sure that all the feedback is accurate, because all the other interactivity like stories and scenarios are things that we got from the practitioners. So those are things that are coming from real world, we're amalgamating it based on a true story, but maybe all they care about is that we are pointing the learner afterwards to the right resources and that we're reinforcing the right messaging. So instead of sending them the whole thing, maybe we would just send them the feedback. And she was like, maybe that would be a really good way to get them to focus and make that task small enough for this subject matter expert to be like, I can contribute that. I don't have to wait, another week until I have an afternoon off to really be productive here. So that might be another strategy, where it's like, where would they really, really care about this? Because subject matter experts, in the end, it's also going to be like, they're going to be held accountable if there's any wrong info, right? Like it's also on them, right? So there's a lot of pressure all around. Not only do you have to perform, but now you have to be a part of this learning project. Maybe you don't even know what e-learning is, or you've seen some terrible stuff and you're like, I don't want to have my name attached to something terrible, right? Or inaccurate. So think about it from that way. And think about the fact that, and to me, this is kind of weird because it's like, you'll have people who you send projects to and they won't reply to you for like 2 weeks, and you're like, oh man, I'm moving the project forward. But the thing is, you've left it in their hands. The thing is, now you're waiting for them to come back to you, and it will affect your timelines, right? So that's stressful. But then what I see is the opposite, where sometimes we get stressed out, and I've done this, where you get feedback and you get all like, you get a little huffy, right? You get a little huffy puffy, and you're like, oh, well, right? But this is what I want you to think. You gotta flip that like 1,000%. Somebody cares. This is what I want you to think. Somebody cares. They care enough. Like when I used to look at feedback comments in like Articulate Review, and if I'd see tons of them, I'd be like, oh my God, come on, right? But then And then I had the clients who didn't give me feedback, and I was like, well, come on, right? Who would you rather have? Absolutely, I would rather have somebody who is giving me the feedback. That means they're thinking about it. That means they care. That means that they're reading the stuff. Like, that's amazing. Some people don't read anything, right? They're reading it. They're engaged. They're thinking about it. And they're giving you feedback. And the other thing is, I always say, just because they gave you feedback doesn't mean you have to take that as face value and make that change. You can say, okay, that's noted. I think there's a better way here, and there's something that I'm trying to achieve. But thank you, right? So acknowledge that, maybe incorporate some of it. That's it, right? Now, my last piece of advice before I go, because I have a meeting. And by the way, if you're here, that's totally awesome. Sometimes you will find people who are not respectful of your time, who are not respectful of your advice, who don't get it, who want to fight, who have something going on, and it happens to impact the project. Guess what? Sometimes you have to say no. And when I say no, I mean sometimes you have to fire the client. You will have to. There are people who are demanding beyond belief. They don't know how to collaborate. They don't respect your time, like I said. They don't respect your expertise. And you can't work with everybody. And maybe they can't work with everybody either. But that doesn't mean that, just because somebody's been assigned to you that you have to put up with them. Like, if they're not a good team player, you got to be vocal about that. And it's not like there's only one person in the world who can give you that info. There really isn't. And if there is, my God, okay, record them someplace else away from you and then work with what you've got. But really, there are times when you're going to have to fire the client. Say, here's your money back. We can't work together. Because if in the first week we're already struggling because we can't really jive on this and you're not giving me any leeway, I can't imagine another month of this, right? Have that honest conversation and set some terms up ahead of time. You are not there to lie down and take everything that comes your way. You're there to provide counsel, guidance, advice based on your experience, right? And they have to also take that into consideration and respect that, because you're coming in as a partner, not as an order taker, right? You're not the minion. And you know what? I get it. It's freaking hard, especially if you are working as a person who is either a one-person department who's trying to be a change agent, right? And you're trying to do all this stuff, and your every single project is a battle. I've been there. Or one of the things that's hard is you'll have all these ideas. And this happened in a session a couple of weeks ago. We had a student jump on and he's like, I got this idea. And he's been working on his scenarios. He's been interviewing subject matter experts and practitioners. So he jumps on and he's like, listen, I'm trying to set this story up to be like from the very beginning to grip them. And I have this idea. What do you guys think? Right? And I was like, that's brilliant, right? I'm like, that's so compelling already. It's a smack. And he's like, I've been sitting on this idea for 2 weeks. It's just that I thought it was silly, but I didn't have anybody else to really just bounce this idea off of, because they'd be like, what, right? They'd be confused. But then he jumped on a live session finally, and he verbalized it. We had a conversation about it, and he was like, that is a good idea. And I'm like, yeah, you just needed to talk through it, right, with somebody else. And sometimes people, and this happens all the time, people are full of amazing ideas. You already know what you need to do, but sometimes you just need somebody else to really bounce that idea back and forth with, to really solidify it for yourself, because now you're verbalizing it. You're not just thinking about it in your mind. And also you have some temperance there, right? Because some will call you on it and be like, well, that's not really that sexy as far as a really good hook for this learner. What about this, right? So you need a little bit of that honesty. And that's one of the things that I really want to reinforce here is, if you're somebody who is a change agent or is trying to be a change agent, and you find yourself being that person who's alone and needs to have around them, it's hard to be a change agent by yourself. If everything is against you, you'll just end up falling back to what's comfortable because it's too much pressure. So if you want to be a change agent at your organization and you're the one-person department trying to handle all of it, including you're selling things and then you're all the way to producing things. If you're looking for that personal growth and you need some backing as far as your ideas and maybe vetting them through with somebody who understands, especially a community of people who are on the same path as you, that's been one of probably the biggest wins for our interactive storyteller community. It's the fact that you now are surrounded by people who not only are rooting for you, but also understand what you're going through and will give you candid feedback, which is huge, right? So if this sounds like something you'd want to be a part of and you want to see where you can take yourself, how we can be of benefit to you, I'd love to talk to you to figure that out. So underneath the video, I'll put a link to book a strategy session with me. And it's linked to my calendar, so you'll see when I'm available, and then I hope we can chat and really take you to the next level. But right now I gotta go because I got another meeting in about 8 minutes, but I hope you found this valuable. I hope it gave you a little bit of a different perspective. And if you have any questions, post them in the chat and I will answer them as soon as I get to it. All right, have a wonderful rest of the day. Happy Wednesday. Bye.